following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast.
Hello and welcome to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where we talk about books, anime, video games, movies, you name it. We'll do it at some point. I don't know. My name is Matt. With me, my co-host who can't stop touching his boobs, Bill Barber.
I would be.
Let's go, Bill.
I was wondering what reference you were going to make, and I'm like, yep, there we go.
I mean, if we're talking about this movie, that it kind of has to be that one. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave the audience in suspense for what we're covering in today's episode. Well, if they haven't read the episode title, but
For real.
yeah. So it's been a couple days. We're in the middle of 4th of July weekend.
Yep.
It's rained pretty much every day, so that's fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did fireworks on the 3rd, and the 3rd was really nice, so that ended up working out pretty well for us.
It was raining last night, and that didn't stop the fireworks.
Yeah, no kidding. I went to put Frances down to bed last night, and like almost as soon as I got her to sleep, I laid her down, and I went down. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and a huge one went off. And I looked down at the monitor. We got like one of the little video monitors, and she's fucking bolt upright. Like, god damn it. I had to go back up and get her back down again.
Yeah. Now it was like 5 o'clock here. I heard the first one go off. I'm looking out the window. I'm like, guys, it's not even dark out yet. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. For
I
real.
just want to blow. It's America. They just want to blow shit up. So
yeah, America.
I'm just thinking of that gif of the guy on like the fucking lawn chair skiing and over the lake with the grill and the flag on the back, and I'm like, yep.
About right.
America.
All right. So how's things with you this week, Bill?
Well, I just got hit by like every bill imaginable right at the end of last month, so I'm broke as fuck right now.
Yeah, I'm right with you there.
And I just got another 2 in the mail, and I was like, great. Like, lovely. So
there's always more.
Yeah. So I've literally, since vacation started, I have not left my house. I left today to go get groceries, so I won't have to the rest of the weekend. And I've spent this entire time basically catching up on anime. That's been my goal.
Nice. What have you been watching?
I just finished Kimi ni Todoke. It is another rom-com romance slice of life anime. Because I've realized in my aging that I've outgrown action and like animes that you'd think my demographic would be into, and now I just watch fucking slice of life because I don't know. That's how it works, I guess.
I mean, I understand that. I do find a comfort in your stereotypical like battle shonen anime, but that's just to be expected with some.
See, I just have a hard time getting into them now. Like, I'll watch a new one, I'll be like, it's like I've tried to get into like say like a Bleach. Like, I fall asleep every time I watch it. I could never get into My Hero Academia. But then you get like exceptions to the rule, like Spy Family, which like somehow manages to combine like elements of everything. That one I can get super into.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like I can watch and enjoy like the newer shonen battle animes and stuff. But I don't like get super into it like I used to. Like I'll sit and I'll watch and I'll enjoy. I'll say, oh, that's great animation, that's great choreography. Like, oh, that's a cool concept for a power. But once I finish it, I'm like, all right, on to the next thing. That's not it. It's hard to find things with the same staying power that I used to see back in the day.
See,
and
I think
I was just gonna say maybe that's just me aging, or maybe that's just the the style of stuff that we're getting nowadays. I couldn't tell you which it is, but no,
Maybe.
that's just kind of where I'm at.
To me, I think a lot of it had to do with like Inuyasha being my favorite anime back in the day. Like I think I just kind of gravitated towards like those kind of animes just because of like the proxy of that one.
That's fair. I mean, it's funny
I,
too because you'd think I'd be in like the opposite fields, whereas like my biggest ones growing up were like Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho, but like I still like slice of life and stuff. Like my actually right before I came over to do this, my wife and I were watching Fruits Basket. She's going through it the first time, and she's actually pretty close to finishing it. She's towards the end of season 2, so.
oh, good. So then she gets to season 3 where shit gets real.
Yeah, she just watched. When I left, she had just finished watching the like reading backstory stuff.
Ah, so she got the full on depression going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, it's just to tie that back. Actually, Kimi ni Todoke is very similar to Fruit Baskets, just minus the absolute depression that
That's
happens.
fair.
That's
fair.
It's one of those unique ones where the anime was so there's only 2 seasons of it. The second season finished back in like 2011.
Oh wow.
It's only just getting a season 3 now. Like they've announced it for, I believe it comes out in October.
That's wild.
But also it didn't get a dub until this year.
Huh.
It sat undubbed for like a decade on Amazon, on Netflix, and that was one of the reasons why I was hesitant to watch it, just because I just can't. I can watch subbed, but I just have such a hard time enjoying a subbed anime because it's like I you have to watch the text the entire time. It just makes it so much harder to like really absorb it.
I understand that take on it, and while I am like primarily a dubby, I also really desensitized myself at a young age with subtitles, so it doesn't bother me really to watch subtitles. I just prefer dubs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point now where if an anime that I like, that I want to watch, doesn't have a dub, I'm actually going out of my way and just reading the manga instead.
That's a fair take, honestly. Like if there's no dub, then reading the manga is probably the best option to go for.
I'm actually going to have to. I started reading Kimi no Todoke's manga before the dub got announced. And then once it got announced, I kind of held off just for the dub. But now I'm going to have to start reading again because season 2, I found out it ends at like volume 11 of the manga.
Okay.
And it's a 30 volume manga. So there's still a lot left that has not been covered.
Still at least a good season or 2 left.
Yeah, people are saying that it's finally going to be finished with season 3, and I'm sitting here thinking like, unless they're going to cram everything into the season and like kind of heavily butcher it, I don't think we're going to have one more season for this. So,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I finally finished Yu Yu Hakusho Tournament Tactics.
Nice.
Which I'm pretty sure I mentioned it recently, but I started that when we did our Yu Yu Hakusho episode, which is what, like episode 4?
Something like that.
It was a while ago. But, you know, like it's a good game that you can just jump in and out of. You know, it's not one that like requires you to be right there with it consistently. You know, you can go in and out. And I technically just finished Legacy of Goku 2. Where like I went through like the final cutscene where, you know, they bring back everybody who's killed by Cell, all that stuff. But I mean, I'm still gonna be playing it for a little bit because I gotta get Mr. Satan to max level so I can get the alternate ending. Which is just him having an interview about how awesome he is for killing Cell.
Yeah, the typical Mr. Satan shenanigans.
For real. But yeah, after that, I think I still have a couple of games on PSP that I had started that I want to get around to finishing. But and Xander got a what's it called? The MetaQuest 2 for his birthday.
Oh yeah.
And I tried that out yesterday, and it was actually pretty cool.
I've used, so not the MetaQuest, but I've used the PlayStation VR.
I really want to get that one.
So the Best Buy had a setup for it once, like the Best Buy back in Plymouth.
Mhm.
When that thing first got announced, they had a whole like thing like you could try it, and it was like before work because I think I was still working nights at the time, and I said, "Fuck it, why not? I'll give it a shot."
Mhm.
I was looking through the games, and the games they had were kind of lame, but they had Resident Evil 7 as an option. I was like, "All right, let's see this." And I played like 20 minutes of Resident Evil 7, and I like took it up, and I went, "That was really awesome." But fuck that! like I was like, like that's a creepy enough game as it is. Like I do not need to be in VR to play that thing. I was like, no, thank
I,
you.
that's fair. I think MetaQuest has 4 and 8. But MetaQuest has like a really limited like run of like I think a lot of the games are original for specifically for like that kind of thing.
8 could be cool. 4, that's a unless they switch it to first person because 4 is a third person game. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Um, I'd have to look into it to really know. I haven't tried a demo for it or anything. I did try what's that Super Hot and Beat Saber, which I think were both
Oh,
games made
Beat Saber.
specifically for VR. They were both really fun. I liked Super Hot. That was really cool.
Hmm.
But I know that they have like there's a Walking Dead game for it, which I'd really like to try. And what else? There's a Five Nights at Freddy game.
Yep.
There's a few other things that I was kind of interested in. But if I was going to get a VR, I'd want the PlayStation one just so I
Yeah.
could have Skyrim VR.
Fair.
Because I mean, if I'm gonna go into a VR world, I'd want it to be something like that. That'd be awesome.
See, I'd be extremely basic and just play Minecraft. But
Weirdly enough, not on the MetaQuest. Roblox is, but not Minecraft.
interesting.
I mean, Minecraft would be honestly like that would probably be like the thing that would make me want to play Minecraft is if it was VR.
See, I just like the builds. Minecraft is like my I need to kill an hour game. I'll pop that in and I'll just build a tower or something for like an hour.
That's fair. See, like I understand why people have that draw for Minecraft. It's just never really spoke to me, if that makes sense.
Mm. I went through a big phase of it towards the end of high school and during COVID. I had another Minecraft craft phase. It's an on and off kind of game for me.
That's fair. You know what I think would be really cool on VR is something like Dragon Quest Heroes or like any of those like warrior games.
Maybe I'd
You
have
know,
to
like the one
replay.
versus 1,000 type of games.
Yeah, they'd have to redesign them for first person, but I can see that.
Yeah, I'm sure they can make it work. But yeah, aside from that, I've watched some more Marvel stuff this past week. I watched Eternals. I watched that the newest Spider-Man movie, so I've finally gotten around to it.
I love that movie, even though like some aspects of it are kind of not great.
It's kind of cheesy at points, but I definitely out of the this current like Tom Holland generation of Spider-Man, easily the best one.
See, I like Tom Holland as Spider Man, but I won't lie. When I was watching that movie, the whole time I'm sitting here like during the Tom Holland stuff, I'm like, okay, come on, come on. And then the second fucking Andrew Garfield appears, I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah, for real.
And then when
Like, all right,
Peter
we got
when
Dark Spider-Man.
and then when Tobey Maguire showed up, I was like, okay, this is great. Like I'm happy now.
Yeah, now we're in it.
I love how they show up too. Like they just like they're like, hey Peter, come here, and it's like you're not the guy we thought you were.
It's like what? Me? Like
I also love the line where like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's like he's like he does like his web thing and they're like he's like what wait what's a web cartridge? He's like what you mean it's not just part of your arm?
yeah,
That was
right.
that was the thing at one point. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was like what is it like? How do you like do that? Like we're curious. It's just like I don't know. I don't like do breathing. I just have it. Like what do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like the guy they brought back the guy who played Doc Ock and he fucking nailed it like the entire time too, which I thought was
I
great.
mean, I mean everybody that brought back, and I love how they gave closure to all those villains. Like it kind of makes me want like a continuation to the other iterations of Spider-Man because now everything's different.
There's been rumors about potentially doing a Spider-Man 4 and an Amazing Spider-Man 3 just to continue those storylines. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but
Yeah, well,
could be fun.
even if they wanted to do like an animated thing, like I'd be into that. Just like
Might
a little something to show like what like the effect that those changes in the timeline has had. Because especially when you think about like, all right, we got 3 major villains from each of the the Tobey Maguire movies, and then you got the 2 from the Amazing Spider-Man, and we're changing things with each of them. So like, I mean, look at it this way: like the changes you make to Green Goblin, right?
yeah, they made him
That's
actually
going to
have a cool suit for once.
yeah, but that's gonna like directly affect what would have happened in Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. So it's like, how would the changes from the first movie affect the second movie, and so on? You know what I mean?
Then they reformed Doc Ock, which I thought was a cool touch because the actor there blew it away. Like I still think he was like the best guy out of the entire film.
For real. And I will say I'm a little disappointed that they didn't get back Topher Grace for Eddie Brock in that one last scene at the end.
True. I kind of like Tom Hardy though. Like I thought his performance was pretty good.
That's fair, but I just thought it would have been kind of cool to just have him and like, you know, just him sitting at the bar, just like these goddamn Spider-Men. Like,
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the implications of that scene because it basically kind of confirms that Venom's gonna happen in the MCU at some point. But
well, they did Venom movies already. Are those not part of the MCU?
Those are part of the Sony verse. It's a completely different universe.
That's bizarre.
So the reason Tom Hardy was there is because the portals were all fucked up. So he had got sucked into their universe briefly. That's why he got sucked back at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, I picked up on that, but I don't know. I just thought it was
that's a completely
kind of weird.
The Sony films are all their own standalone thing.
Yeah, but the MCU kind of makes all those one and the same, right?
Kinda. It's basically the parallel universe kind of thing. It's like how there's the Tobey Maguire universe technically exists in its own thing, and then the Andrew Garfield universe exists in its own thing.
And then I have to wonder, like, because the way it ends, like, obviously, like, you know, obviously Doctor Strange is a big part of this movie, right?
Yeah.
The way it ends was set up for the next Doctor Strange movie, the Multiverse of Madness or whatever. Obviously that's going to lean more into multiverse stuff. So you got to wonder, is he going to be responsible for like the Wolverine Deadpool movie coming out soon, like, and like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, like, all that stuff that's coming out in the future? Like,
that's a good point. I don't really know because I haven't been really following any of the Marvel movies since the Spider-Man one. I'm gonna watch Deadpool and Wolverine just because I have to at this point, but
understandable.
It's like the one thing we've all wanted since like they started doing X-Men movies. So
ever since they first referenced it in that first movie,
yeah.
Like, what'd you expect? Yellow spandex?
Well, because when that movie first came out, people didn't think. Why am I brain farting his name right now?
What,
Wolverine? Who plays Wolverine? Yeah, who plays Wolverine? I'm having a brain fart.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, duh. I remember when Hugh Jackman first got announced, everyone thought he was gonna suck, and then like he just fucking nailed that part. And it's to the point now where I don't think anyone thinks anyone else could do the role at this point.
Yeah, well, he was a total unknown when he was cast as Wolverine. I actually, like I think I mentioned before, I just recently finished listening to Patrick Stewart's memoir, and he talks a little bit about how he got cast and everything, and how Hugh Jackman came on and was just like nobody knew who he was. He's just some random Australian dude, like, and it ended up being like perfect.
He fucking stole the show, that's for sure.
For real.
Yeah, I gotta get back into the Marvel movies at some point. There's too many comic book movies now. I'm so burned out by it.
I get that, but I mean, at least with like, obviously when you factor in the series on top of the movies, it's a lot. But when it's just movies, like you can get through them pretty quickly, all told. You know,
Yeah.
It's not like watching like a 500 episode anime or anything.
True. That's true. I don't know. Maybe at some point. I'm in my anime phase at the moment, so
Hey, I'm
nothing.
not gonna divert you from that. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. My goal is to knock out a whole bunch of 12 and like 26ers over the next couple months. So
That's what I've been kind of trying to do, but it's the problem is like trying to figure out which ones, like trying to weed through the crap.
yeah. Because I don't like to drop animes. Like if I start one, I have to finish it, even if it sucks.
I'm the same way. I can't help myself. That's why I finished Fairy Tail. Which, for the record, like Fairy Tail had a real strong start. I loved the beginning of Fairy Tail, but just the further on it went, it just got worse and worse. Like it got to a point where it was cringy. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like the ending, not cringy, but it's kind of like the ending to a Yu Yu Hakusho where it just fucking ends, and you're like, huh.
Well, at least that, like, I felt satisfied by the end of that. Like, there wasn't any point where I was watching that where I was like actually upset or like grossed out or anything. You know what I mean?
The ending itself is fine. It's just the whole like that final arc where it's like Yusuke just kind of loses the fight, and then like he wakes up the next minute. And it's like, oh yeah, this random guy won, by the way, and it's like, oh yeah, okay. It's like cool, I guess.
I get that.
You could tell that the author really just wanted to be done with it because he wanted to move on to other things, but it's still a very abrupt ending. It's not as bad as some animes, but it is. I think thankfully the way that the series ends, like the final episode, makes up for it, but that is still kind of an abrupt ending.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be like if like Full Metal Alchemist ended with like they just skip like the final fight. It's like Ed gets knocked down. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, father died.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, Armstrong killed him. Just he just punched his brains.
Punched him off screen. Oh, and Al has his body back now. It's like, here you go.
Yeah. Makes sense of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the first series ended. Like not like exactly like the movie kind of fixed a lot of it, but like the first anime series just kind of have just like that ending, like it just kind of ends. Like there was like a final confrontation, but it wasn't nearly to the scale of Brotherhood.
I've watched bits and pieces of the original Full Metal Alchemist anime over the years. And the more I watch it now, after watching Brotherhood and reading the manga, the more I'm kind of like, they really, when she let them basically do whatever, they really fucking went in their own direction. Because my God, there is so much edgy shit in that 2003 anime.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, it's one of those things where like you give. I'm trying to think of exactly how much. It might have been like the first 7 or 8 volumes of manga out of like a 30-volume manga. And when you get something this like I'm trying to think of the right way to word it. Like Full Metal is a very interwoven, like it's a tapestry of events.
Yeah.
And when you just get the beginning of it, it could literally go anywhere. Like,
oh yeah, no, I can see exactly where they got their conclusions from, but
like they could have gone way fucking nuttier than they had gone, and it would have been right in line with the way it started. You know what I mean? It was one of those ones where it could have gone in any direction based on the way it starts.
I think to me, like the biggest problem with the two Full Metal series is like you really have to space out your watching of them. Mm-hmm. And I'd honestly say you should watch 2003 first. Hi, car. You should watch 2003 first, then take like a big break, then watch Brotherhood. Because I feel like if you watch Brotherhood first and then take a break and watch 03, it's gonna be a lot harder to appreciate 2003.
I would definitely agree with you there. As somebody who did watch it that way, I definitely agree with you. It definitely it does cheapen it a little bit. Well, because this isn't to detract from what the people who worked on it did, because they did a good job with what they had. But when you have like the vastly, I mean, obviously it is subjective depending on the person. There are people who prefer the first anime series, so I'm not trying to disclude you, but objectively, you look at the two, one of them is very, very much better written than the other.
Yeah. To me, it's like if you've read the manga and then you've watched Brotherhood and then you go to 2003 after that, you realize Like this screams early 2000s in so many ways.
Oh, for sure. For
Like
sure.
there's a lot of dark for the sake of being dark plot lines in that one that I've noticed over the years, and I'm like, it's not bad. It's just it's one of those things where I kind of wish they had just waited till the manga was done, but
Mhm.
it's a different time now. Now they will actually do that. So
Yeah, now seasonal anime is a very consistent thing. Actually, I think Brotherhood might have been one of the first like big spearheaded versions of seasonal anime.
well, I know it was a lot of people love to compare um they love to compare Full Metal with Fruit Baskets hilariously enough because they kind of have a similar like thing where like the original series came out and it was kind of not exactly what the author wanted. So then they made a better version later on that actually was true to text.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely plenty of examples of that. I mean, Helsing does the same thing.
True.
Um,
I
I
mean,
know there are others too.
we got Rurouni Kenshin right now.
Yeah, Rurouni Kenshin, Trigun is also doing that
Dragon.
now.
Yep.
So I mean, I think it's becoming one of the more common ways to handle some of those shows that came out a while ago that didn't really hit the nail
Berserk's getting
just right.
another anime pretty soon.
I think that's a fan project.
I saw it
I've read
pop
up
up.
on it a little bit.
I don't know. I'll have to recheck into that. Either way, Berserk's ironically had a reverse take where the redone anime is considered worse than the original. So
Yeah, well, that was supposed to be a continuation from the original, and they decided to go full CG, and it was really shitty CG.
yeah,
Like, I
full
mean, when
CG
you compare that to something like Sandland or Superhero, and like,
or even Trigun Stampede.
yeah, even try to get Stampede or Dorohedoro, like the Berserk 2016 anime looked like hot garbage.
Hmm.
I mean, the story was still, because I had read the portion of the manga they had covered years ago, and they got that pretty well. They skipped over some stuff that was kind of inconsequential, but makes sense
Hmm.
in context. But overall, like they hit the story beats they needed to hit. It just looked so shitty,
Yeah,
and the
unfortunately.
movies were very heavily done CG too, but they were they had a movie budget, so they did it a lot better.
Yeah. I will say, out of all the remakes, though, I'm pretty sure the only one that I know of that the author of the original source material absolutely despised was the original Fruit Baskets anime.
That's fair.
Because I know she basically, from what the story is, that the original Fruit Baskets anime was made during a time period where the author Natsuki Tiyaka, she actually had suffered a hand injury and she wasn't able to write for the time
Mhm.
being. So they were doing that anime in the background, and apparently the director just like brushed her off basically for every suggestion or like thing she would point out that was wrong, and he basically just did his own thing.
Mhm.
Because there's so many points throughout the original Fruit Baskets where it's like they play up the comedy for no reason in a scene where it's really not supposed to be comedic. Um, I've said it before, like we did a whole GNC episode going over Fruit Baskets. I said
I
it
was
in
on
that
that
like, yeah, that was that was our third collab before we just started Geek Addicts.
I believe so.
But I said it on there, like they absolutely butcher the final arc of season one because the first anime basically just covers season one of the second anime.
Yeah,
Um,
because it ended with like the Kyoto form arc, right?
yeah, and they absolutely butcher that in the original anime. At least in my opinion. I'm sure some people probably defend it, but I
That's fair.
don't
I,
like.
I I intend to get around to watching the original at some point, just for the sake of completionism. But I mean, I'm not expecting a ton from it after watching the newer version.
Yeah, if you've watched the 2019 remake, it's going to be really hard to go back to the 2001 anime.
It'll probably
But
just be like a casual watch kind of thing, like not like paying super hard attention to kind of thing.
yeah, it's really just the animation is so much worse too. But that's a nitpick. Um, the
Yeah, that's
soundtrack
just
the soundtrack
oh,
is
it's good.
really good though.
Oh, that's good. That's always good.
And the
Sounds
voice
kind of can
cast,
make or break a series.
and the voice cast. I mean, for the most part, it's the same people from the remake because they got most of them back. But the voice cast is really good as well. It's just the way they handled the original anime is just not great.
Fair enough.
But yeah, we're already half an hour into this thing and we haven't even got to our topic yet. So speaking of anime, and if you couldn't guess from the start of this show, we're talking about Your Name. The what year did this come out? It's old now at this point.
Well, old-ish. It's still recent in the grand scheme of things.
It's 2016, so we're getting close to it being over 10 years old. My God.
Yeah. There's a part of me that was really considering just letting this just be like a, off the cuff, just shooting the shit kind of episode and just leaving the audience in suspense about why I mentioned you touching your boobs.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Oh boy. But yeah, Your Name. I'm curious, what caused you to watch this one just out of the blue?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard you talk about it a couple times, and it's been brought up, and I've seen it in just different anime fan circles and stuff like that. I just like I wanted to start watching more movies in general, and I know I still have a bunch of Ghiblis that I have to watch, but I don't know, like that. Like I was thinking to myself, like I want to just watch a movie, nothing that I have to invest super heavily in, and that was just the first one that came to mind, and so I just searched it up and saw it on Crunchyroll. So that was all it was, really. Literally just a spur of the moment decision.
Yeah, Your Name is an interesting one because it really kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I remember, so the way I got into Your Name was literally like me and Alex were just like hanging out one day. She was home from college, and I was, I think it was a weekend, so I wasn't working at the time. And we were just chilling in a Walmart. And we were looking through the anime section because that's back when Walmart actually had a decent anime section.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Oh, look, it's Your Name. I saw that movie in the theaters back in where she went to college." And I was kind of like, "Oh, is it good?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's really good." So I said, "Fuck it," and I bought it. Just what the fuck, because it was like $20 for the Blu-ray. And then we went home and watched it that day, and I remember not really having any expectations for it and just kind of being blown away by the story and like the animation and just like everything around it. It is, so I guess for a little backstory, it is the creation of a director named Makoto Shinkai. And Makoto Shinkai has done a bunch of anime films over the years. He's kind of like the modern day Ghibli in a lot of ways. Like his films have all been like super well received. I think Your Name is actually like his like sixth film, maybe. He had a whole bunch before that that I've still got to watch at some point. I'm planning on watching them all because I want to do a GNC for them at some point.
Okay.
But Your Name was like all of his films had kind of been they were well received, but none of them were like these like smash hits by any means. And I think Your Name was the first one that was like a massive hit.
Yeah,
like it was one of the. It's like it was like one of the biggest anime films of all time, I want to say. And interestingly enough, it's kind of hard to see how well it did, but it had a budget of 750 million yen, which that sounds like a lot, but if you know the conversion rate, yen isn't actually as much as it sounds.
It's
but
probably about 7 million if it was converted to US.
Yeah, something like that. The film made 382.2 million, so dollars.
Wow.
So this film did exceptionally well, both in Japan and in America. Like America, it took off like it was like shocking just how well this film did, especially considering 2016. anime still really hadn't hit that mainstream yet, where now it's just part of normal culture.
It was definitely reaching up to that point though, because I mean by that point we had already had um
I think Resurrection
battle.
F
We've
had,
already Resurrection F and Battle of Gods had come out. I think by that because it came out 2016. You said
yes,
because that by that point Super would have started. We would have already had those big theatrical One Piece movies. So I think we're at the point where it was definitely on the rise. It was starting to peek its head into more mainstream pop culture.
yeah. To me, it was like this was, I think, one of the films that really kind of like was the bridge that kind of like connected like all sorts of anime, because this film is a supernatural themed romance film, like slice of life romance film. And that I think that's the best way to describe it, because it's because the supernatural elements to me are the part that I found to be like the most surprising when watching it the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
Um and one thing before we start talking about the plot, huge spoiler warning in case anyone hasn't seen this film yet. But the film's dub was handled by Funimation and pre Crunchyroll merger. Um, and it features a bunch of pretty well known VAs, including the main cast was uh, it was Michael Sinter Nicholas, I think is how you pronounce that. That's probably butchered. Um, what did he do? I'm sure he's done something that I know of. Oh, he's a bunch of characters in Bleach.
Oh, okay. So he's probably primarily a Viz voice actor.
Yes. Oh, he was in. Oh, he's Leo in Full Metal Alchemist.
Leo.
I don't know who that is, but he's somebody in that.
Is it Full Metal Alchemist or Brotherhood?
It just says Full Metal Alchemist, so I'm assuming the original.
Probably the original then. I don't remember Leo. It's been a while since I watched that.
He's in a couple. He's a couple voices in One Piece. He does a whole bunch of. I don't even think he's a Viz guy. I think he's just a kind of a general voice actor. Does everything. Oh, he played adult. He played adult Chris Thorndike in Sonic X. Hell yeah! What a role. Yeah, but yeah, he's been in a whole bunch of stuff. But then the female lead of this film is actually a voice actress that I know very well. It's Stephanie Sheh.
I'm not familiar with the name. Who does she play?
Hinata.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Hear,
I knew the voice is familiar, but
yep, she's Hinata among a lot of other voice voice roles over the years, but she's most famous for Hinata Hyuga. And
it's kind of hard to tell though when Hinata is the character that I know of the most, because when she's playing her, she does the very like, oh, I'm so shy, and Naruto, please notice me. Like it's kind of hard to like differentiate when you have that kind of voice inflection.
Yeah, it's a bit tough. Although there are points in this where when Michiwa talks, you're like, oh, that's the Hinata voice. I can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Other ones are like Kyle Hubert plays one of the characters in this.
He was the chick's friend, right? The tall one.
Yeah, Tessie.
Yeah.
Cassandra Lee Morris, Ray Chase, Laura Post, I think. A whole bunch of modern Funimation actors. Like I think a lot of them, this was like their first real thing, maybe.
That makes sense.
Because this was definitely late Funimation, because this was right before the merger.
Yeah. Well, I think this is like that weird period of time when they like had kind of teamed up, but then split back up again before they actually like fully merged.
And then Sony bought both of them and just said, back together, you two.
Yeah. Enough fighting.
Well, they basically just gutted Crunchyroll but just kept the name and then just put it over Funimation.
Hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, going into the story of Your Name, what was your first thought? Like just that opening scene.
The opening scene, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, honestly, because it had such a bizarre opening, because it had like the beginning where they were like, it kept flashing between the two of them and it was showing like the comet and everything, and then Mitsuha wakes up, but it's not really Mitsuha, or maybe it is. That first couple scenes confuses me with that.
Yeah. Like the
Um,
opening is like this whole montage, which is mostly just so they can have an anime intro song, which is really good. The soundtrack for this film is excellent.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but there's a whole like scene where like it's showing like these progressions between the two main characters, Taki and Michua, and it's like showing them age up and then like de-age and like switches between the two parallels. There's the whole
Mhm.
metaphorical red string of fate thing going around, and then the comet, which are all I'm like watching it now. I'm like, wow, this just kind of spoils like the film entirely. If you,
Yeah, once you've watched it the first time, watching the beginning part again makes so much more sense than it did the first time.
yeah. But then the first scene is literally Michio just wakes up and is like bugged out of her mind. And I still remember my entire reaction. I just looked over at Alex as we were watching it, and I'm like, is that the dude in the chick's body? And she just goes, I don't know, maybe. And I'm just like, okay. And then he proceeds to do the thing that all dudes do, where well, all dudes would probably do in this situation, where he immediately grabs the boobs
Yep.
and then takes the clothes off and has the epiphany. And he's like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
The oh my god, I have boobs moment.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's the film's whole premise is very interesting, where it's essentially it has this weird, so it's really confusing because Michua is older than Taki, but when they switch, it's like he's going to like that time period when she's like in there, and then he's still in his. It's weird how they do it. Like
Yeah. It's like their minds are the same age, but they're body swapping through time. So like
yeah,
technically Mitsuha is like 3 years older than him.
yeah, because there is a scene later on where Michua goes to the city, and runs into Taki, but he has no idea who the fuck she is.
Mhm.
Um, and it's because there's a time difference. It's a very bizarre way of telling a story, but it works as it goes on.
Yeah, it's a really interesting twist to the whole Freaky Friday concept.
Yeah, you could say that again. Um, but it's interesting because like the plot will kind of like, so we get like Taki in Mitsua's body's perspective first, and he's kind of trying to get through the day, and he's kind of learning about Mitsua's life, where she's part of this like really traditional family in this city called, I think the city's name is Amori.
Uh, that sounds right.
Well, it's more
I
of a
literally I watched it a few hours ago, but when it comes to things like this, keeping track of, I mean, I'm hard at keeping track of real people's names in my real life. So keeping
yeah.
track of all these different names from a different culture that I'm not used to is even harder.
See, I can remember Taki and Michua because they're the main characters, but the rest of the cast I'll have to look up because I can't remember their names. I can remember their character traits, but that's about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm right with you there.
so Taki kind of goes through an entire day in Michua's body, and he's basically like, they're all like, wow, you're acting really strange today. Like you're not like at all like how you used to be.
Mhm.
Because like Michua is a very proper girl. Like she has like her like fancy hairdo and everything, and like she's basically tries to be like normal, basically, and Taki's a dude, and he doesn't
Mhm.
have time for any of that.
Yeah.
Um, but what's funny is then we cut to it cuts over to Mitsua, and she's in Taki's body, and we get basically the exact same thing, only it's now reversed, and you get the whole perspective of it. And I just find it really amusing how like they basically kind of improve each other's lives in their bodies as it goes on.
Yeah, later on, Mitsuha gets Taki a date with this girl he's been crushing on. Just just by
which is
nature of being herself in his body.
yeah, because like there's so the girl in question is she works at the restaurant where Taki works, and there's some rowdy customers, and they end up slicing like a hole in the skirt of like the older woman's uniform. So like Michu and Taki's body like goes and like fixes it for her, and she finds that very attractive in a man, which is hilarious because it's actually a woman. And I think the whole time is like Mitsu is like making this like dream date in her head, and I think the whole time Mitsu was I think attracted to the girl more than Taki was, um, which is really funny. But eventually they start realizing what's going on, and their way of communicating to each other is they draw messages on their faces, and that's how they
Yeah, they do it on their faces. There's like memo pads on their phones. They write in notebooks. There's all sorts of different ways of like kind of keeping track of like trying to like cooperate to not be considered crazy living their day-to-day lives.
yeah. And as they go through the whole thing, it's kind of like it builds up to that whole the date happens, and like it ends up being kind of a bust where it's like Taki's not really into that. I should really look up her name because she is kind of an important character. But yeah, Taki's not actually into her that much as he thought he was, so the date ends up kind of being a dud, but they end up becoming closer friends because of it.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool because she ends up like helping him later on with his like his quest to find the village.
Yes, because the woman's name is Miki, by the way. But yeah, so like eventually, like he starts like doing research into because he's going through the village all the time. Like there's one point where they go and do some sort of ritual thing in the this weird abandoned like field thing, and it's all like part of Japanese like Miko culture and stuff that I don't really understand, but it's there. Um, so there's a point where like he's trying to find like this village, and like they end up going on this whole like road trip essentially, just to find out that this is where like you get the reveal that there's a huge time skip. He finds out that the village of Imori has been destroyed by a meteorite.
Yeah, like 3 years previous.
And everybody died. Like it's one of those things where like he's essentially talking to a dead girl through time. It's weird how they explain it.
There's a Star Trek episode about that.
There is. There actually is. What was your thought on like the whole reveal that Michu has been dead this whole time?
I mean, I thought it was pretty wild. It was definitely not what I was expecting at all. I mean, I didn't know what I was expecting because at this point, it's about like midway through the movie where, because after the date that he goes on, the body swap thing just stops altogether, and he's like super confused about why it stopped.
I think
and then once he,
I think it has something to do with the heartbreak between the two of them because Michua thought this is what he wanted, but by this point they're getting close to each other despite not actually having met yet.
I mean, I assumed that the reason why it was severed was because I mean, if time was passing like 1-to-1 for both of them, like despite the 3-year separation, then because when she was setting up the date for him, like she was saying like, oh, by the end of the date, you guys should be able to see the comet in the sky, whatever you're doing.
True.
So that was the day she died.
That would make sense.
My thought was she died, so the connection was severed.
Yeah, it gets kind of muddied there with like the fact that like he manages. So the part that I got confused with was, so we actually should probably talk about Michua's like what goes on with Michua for a bit. Because honestly, it's a lot less interesting than what's going on with. Well, I should say Taki and Michua's body because it's a lot less interesting than what's going on with Michua and Taki's body because like there's like basically he just kind of goes around her town and stuff and acts extremely out of character for Michua because Michua is not exactly popular around her town because her dad is a big politician or something like that.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
a whole backstory about how like her mom died, and then he just kind of like lost his shit and ran for politics for some reason.
yeah, and he's kind of a d bag the entire film.
Hmm.
Um, and
Although I
then
think
her,
he does ultimately come around because he does kind of eventually back her up with the whole thing that happens later. But we'll get there.
yeah, because then like also like her two friends are Tessie and I forget the girl's name. Um, but they're
Pigtails.
yeah, they're like kind of a big trio. I know Tessie's father owns a construction company, and the other girl kind of is just there. Um,
Yeah.
but there's like points where like you see like they're like, wow, Mitsu was like the star of the basketball team now because Taki's just being himself in her body.
Yeah. Right.
Um, I also like to like the little play where like when Mitsu is in her own body, she's got her hair in that fancy ponytail thing. But
Hmm.
when Taki's in her body, he's too lazy to do that, so he just leaves her hair down.
Yeah. Or
And
like a
she,
basic ponytail.
yeah, and she has a much more like delinquent look to her.
Hmm. And I love like I know obviously we haven't gotten quite to that point yet, but I love how it's a plot point where they both have the same um like threaded string the whole time. Like he uses it as a bracelet and she uses it as a hair tie.
Yes, because the one part where that transfer happens is she when she goes to visit him in the city, she actually gives him her hair tie, and that's
Hmm.
how the shift happens.
Yeah.
Because if you remember later on, she cuts her hair off and just has a bob, but she no longer has the hair tie.
Yeah. God, there's so many aspects to this movie that I want to touch on. It's just that it's such a well done like I can't imagine any way to improve on the story.
It's one of those films that's really hard to explain, but like watching it like as you watch it, it makes more and more sense the more it goes.
Yeah, well, that's why like because I had my wife watch the movie with me earlier today because I wanted her to watch it anyway, but I knew like we were going to be doing it for the show. So once we had the opportunity, we sat down and watched it, and I just didn't say anything about it at all because I couldn't even begin to try and explain the concept. It's one of those things you kind of just have to experience.
Yeah. Um so yeah, the whole time though, like once we get to this point now where Taki knows about the fate of Imori and the meteor, he's like on this quest now where like he has to like somehow stop it because he knows exactly the date it is, but he can't get in touch with Mitsuha anymore.
Mhm.
So he ends up going to he finds the ruins of the little shrine thing where they had put away their it had some weird name. It's
I'm pretty sure it was ultimately just old school sake. The
yeah,
sake.
which was essentially they chewed the rice themselves and spit it into a bottle. It was really one of those things where you're like, ah, yes, culture.
Yeah.
um
On today's episode of How It's Made.
it's referred to as I'm gonna butcher this. Kuchi Kamakaski or something. I apologize in advance. That's the best I'm gonna be able to do.
That's
Um
fair.
but yeah, it's like it's a special ceremonial thing. Like they don't actually make it like that anymore, obviously. But
Unless they're doing like a traditional like in the context of this movie where it was like a
yeah,
festival, like a traditional kind of thing. Which actually was kind of a plot point where while she was doing it, like a bunch of her schoolmates were like passing by, like making fun of her and stuff.
yeah. And you can tell too that she's doing it for the family, but she's not into that lifestyle at all.
Yeah, like she wants to live in the city and like kind of like have that kind of busy lifestyle.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Taki in the opposite wants to be more free and not have to live in the deal with the city stuff.
Hmm.
Um yeah, but what ends up happening is he drinks the sake from the thing, and which in hindsight is really gross, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, it's how they
Um,
did it back in the day. Like
yeah,
way back when, all sake was like that. So I mean, it is what it is.
well, it's just this dirty stuff that he found in like a mud pit, basically. But
I
um,
mean, what's worse, like drinking sake that was fermented in somebody's spit, or right, in this particular case, a pretty girl's spit. Which I mean, whatever.
I mean,
Or wine,
her
or
reaction is
wine,
based true.
or wine that was made with by crushing grapes with dirty ass feet. I mean, either way, it's pretty
True.
gross.
I will say Mitsua's reaction to him drinking it when she finds out is about the same as mine. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
fair.
but yeah, he drinks the sake and it somehow triggers another switch,
Hmm.
sort of. It's unclear exactly what happens here. Um, so like what happens next is like they end up meeting in the past because they find this like weird point that like the two timelines converge essentially.
Hmm.
Because before that, we see this shot of Mitsuha at this like festival that they're having, and you see the meteor split, and then it cuts and shows the aftermath of the how the village got destroyed, essentially.
Yeah,
Which it was a very shocking scene, and I was like, wow, like
yeah,
that's dark.
for
Um,
sure.
but because Taki somehow got into his like this weird parallel spot where the two of them were could meet. They both meet face to face for the first time and are able to finally talk. And that's where Saki no, Taki gives back gives Mitsua back her cord braid thing, and they both kind of are chatting, but they're both like saying like they should write each other's names down on their hands so they can remember.
Hmm.
But Mitsua doesn't have enough time to write because she only writes a line, and she later looks down and finds out that Taki just wrote "I love you" instead of his name,
Hmm.
which like great job, Taki. Like that totally helps. Um,
I see. I missed that entirely because watching it on Crunchyroll, there's no translation there. So I thought that was. I thought he wrote his name. I
no,
I didn't even know
he did not write his name. That's why
there was
she's
no
so
trend.
that's why she's so confused.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
but she ends up because now she knows about the meteor. She ends up going back to try and stop it, and basically she gets her friends and they're like, we need to cause a distraction, like and like get people out of here because she knows her dad isn't going to stop it. So she gets Tessie to break into his dad's construction company and basically cause a fucking shitstorm with the power grid and stuff.
Yeah, they
And
like set off plastic explosives there.
yeah, it's fucking metal as shit. But then during this scene, they switch again, and it's like, okay, like all right, it's just happening whenever now.
Hmm.
Um, so Taki has to essentially go out of his way, and he's the one that goes to her father and essentially berates him, and he brushes her off until he realizes really fast that it's not his daughter in there because there's a heavy implication that this has happened in the past with that family because they're
Yeah,
mystic and stuff.
it seems like it's a generational thing because the grandmother insinuates that it happened to her and her daughter, which would be Mitsuha's mother.
Yeah,
So
because
it's like a continuous thing that happens. And my wife and I were actually just talking about this over dinner after we watched it. Like, is that how all of the like marriages like because the father picked up on it, so it makes you wonder. Okay, like did Mitsuha's mother and her father have this body swapping thing like when they were younger and that's how they got together? Because it seems like every time this happens and once it's resolved, they forget that it happened until it happens with the next generation.
yeah, it's kind of implied there. It's not confirmed by any means. I think this is mostly just kind of like Shinkai
Well,
trying to make a
speculation.
yeah. I think Shinkai is just trying to make us think. Um, I will say though, it's very obvious. Like the grandmother is she doesn't ever explicitly say anything, but she's very unsubtle about how she can tell when Taki's in Mitsuo's body. Like she very well knows.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so eventually, like whatever Taki does, he convinces Mitsuo's dad just in time for Mitsuo to regain control, and basically they all evacuate the city right before the meteor comes, and they basically change history.
Yeah. Which makes me kind of wonder is like, is the forgetting thing part of the mystical part of it, or is it because they changed history that they forgot?
That's a good question that I don't think we'll ever get an answer to, unfortunately. But that is actually a really interesting way of thinking about it. I always assumed just it was just something that they would forget about, like because I always assumed the only reason they remembered at all was because of the notebooks and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, that FedEx guy was in a hurry back there, but
Yeah, they always are here.
anyways, um, so then after this, it kind of leaves you on a bit of an ambiguous ending. Well, final act, I should say, where we're now back in Taki's body. Well, it's Taki's POV entirely, and he's now an adult, and he's trying to get into the working world. But
Yeah, it
he's
says
kind of
like 5 years after, I believe.
yeah. There's been at least a decent time skip. 'Cause he's definitely an adult now because he's going from job to job. He's essentially job hunting, but
Hmm.
he's kind of in this weird like he's obsessed with Amori and he doesn't know why. And he wants to be like an architect essentially, but his pitch to all the potential jobs is pretty poor because I don't even think he knows exactly what he's trying to say.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where like he has this thing that he's trying to seek. He's trying to find something that makes him have that emotion. Like he remembers having the emotion when he was younger, but he doesn't understand why he had it, and he
Hmm.
has trouble conveying it because of that.
Yeah. And he basically kind of get like his buddies, like he runs into his so we didn't mention his buddies, but one of his friends that joined him on his little journey quest along with Miki earlier on in the film. He's talking with him at like a cafe, and he's essentially kind of like he's like, I don't know, I can't seem to get a job. He's like, maybe you should get a better suit. That one looks pretty shit shit on you.
Yeah, I love how everyone shits on his suit.
Yeah, the entire time. And then he runs into Miki, and apparently she's recently gotten married.
Hmm.
Um,
I didn't actually notice that until this most recent watch.
yeah, if you notice closely, I think she
She
has a
has
wet.
she waves and she's got a wedding ring.
Yeah, which is nice. I mean, she was an adult. Like, it's unsurprising.
Hmm.
But yeah. So it's nice though that they're still in touch, which is nice.
Hmm.
Then we also get another scene, which is a very blink it or miss it scene. But we also cut to a scene of Tessie and the other girl are sitting in a cafe talking about their upcoming marriage, which is another thing that's kind of nice. It's showing that that basically confirms that the people of Imori did survive.
Yeah, see, I missed that the first time. I thought he was just hearing a regular conversation, and then when I watched it earlier today, I didn't like it didn't cross my mind until after um right when it moves into the next scene. I'm like, wait a minute, was that, like
Yep.
I just didn't catch it like in the moment, but after the
See,
fact, I was like, wait a minute. And I think it's also because they look different, like the dude's got facial hair, the chick doesn't have the ponytails anymore. So like,
see, the only reason I knew it was them was because Kyle Hubert's voice. Like I picked up on that right away.
yeah, it's kind of hard to miss that.
Um, I did find that interesting though because they really didn't have any romantic like connection before. I think this was literally just trying to pair the spares,
Yeah.
as they
I
say.
mean,
Because
I don't know.
well, Tessie had interest in Mitsua before, which is where I found it. I assume he just realized that was never going to happen, and he just kind of went with the other girl. But
That's possible. I think part of it was just because there was like a scene when they were trying to figure out how to save the town, but when Taki was still in Mitsuha's body, where he as Mitsuha was kind of ribbing him, you know, like kind of
yeah,
making fun of him for like, oh, you're alone with a girl, huh? Like kind of like elbowing him and shit, like a dude would. But like,
yeah.
obviously
But he has he
the
doesn't
friend
have
has
the
no concept of what's going on, so it's just a weird thing for him.
yeah. Plus, he also doesn't have Taki doesn't have the awareness to realize he's in a girl's body while he's doing that. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's
um,
just I don't know. There's so many elements to this movie that just make it so interesting.
yeah. Well, I'm actually realizing now we haven't even mentioned we didn't even. Well, she's coming up again, but we didn't mention Mitsu's little sister at all.
Oh yeah, because there was a running joke where every time he would wake up in Mitsuha's body, he would be touching the boobs, and every single time she would open the door and
Just
see him doing it.
and just be like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?"
My favorite was the very last one though, when he after
where
he drinks
he's
the sake and he wakes up and he's just like
bawling
weeping
his
while
eyes
he's
out.
touching himself. Like,
Yeah, and like the sister's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
he's like, she's totally lost it.
Well, because the sister doesn't realize like that there's the switching going on, which is hilarious because the grandmother totally does.
Mhm.
But my favorite part about that though is that's another blink it or miss it scene is they show that girl in like getting ready for high school. That's supposed to be Mitsu's sister.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, she's all grown up too.
Hmm.
But then we get the most iconic scene, I think, from this entire movie is the scene of them both on the train, where he looks out the window and sees the other train, and it's literally Taki's on one side and then it's Mitsuo on the other, and she's all grown up now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that whole like they're like, oh shit, we gotta get I need to meet this person. I don't know why, but I just need to. So it's like there's the whole like kind of he's getting off his train to go to figure out where she went, and he eventually does run into her as she's going up the staircase, and they both kind of interact and they look each other in the eyes, and they're both kind of like they don't know each other, but they do.
Mhm.
And this is the most ambiguous part of the film because it's never really explained what happened here, but basically the two of them kind of just break down and they realize they're kind of like they don't exactly know what to say to each other, but then it ends with the famous line of Mitsuo saying, "Can I ask you one question? Could I ask you your name?" And then it goes to
Mhm.
credits there. And
Yeah.
it's kind of left ambiguous whether she recognized him like their memories get recovered or they just this is them meeting essentially for the first time and they just have that connection.
The way I read it, to me, I don't think they remembered. I think there was just some sort of like instinctual um gravity between them. Like it was like they recognized each other on a subconscious level, like not on a surface level. And that's why like they both obviously needed to ask what their names were, but they were also like crying as like both of them were
Yeah.
crying as they were asking. So it was one of those things where like lovers in a next life kind of thing, you know, like
The whole Japanese
reincarnated lovers reuniting like a twin flame kind of thing. Like
yeah,
that's the way I took it.
it's the whole anime concept of the red string of fate kind of.
Yeah, the red pinky string of love.
Yeah, cuz like Mitsua's like red cord is supposed to be like a whole metaphorical part of like the whole red string of fate. It's kind of like in Naruto the Last where the scarf Hinata makes for Naruto is supposed to be the red string of fate thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just a Japanese kind of like trope with romance that some things do much more effectively than others. I think this film does it very effectively.
For sure. I mean,
Because
the way that they handle it, where they both were keepers of that string for a while, so it was like I don't know. There's so many interesting avenues you could go down with this movie.
Yeah,
A
honestly,
lot more than you would think for just an hour and a half. You know, like it's not a extremely long movie by any means, but it's
no,
so like jam packed.
it's a very quick watch. I'm surprised how fast it goes by.
Mm.
But it's one of those films that you have to watch a couple times because like there's just so much going on and there's little things like everywhere.
Yeah, my wife loved it. It was funny too because when we were talking about it over dinner today, she was saying like how we watched the like first couple scenes with like him waking up and touching the boobs and standing in front of the mirror and all that other stuff, and she was like, I don't know how I feel about this movie. Is this one of those weird anime movies or is it like a good movie? Like she was kind of like on the fence, which I get because I kind of had um a similar mindset about it when I first started watching it. And then as it goes along and you start putting the pieces together, you realize like how well thought out and like deep this story is.
Ironically, the boob thing is like the only like weird part about this entire movie when you think about it.
And it's just there for a chuckle, it's not.
It's a chuckle, but it's also something that like, let's be real, anybody in this situation would probably do.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
It's one of those, like, no matter what like somebody says, if you somehow switched bodies with someone like that, you're probably gonna do it. Like it's just
yeah,
it's gonna happen.
to be fair, she was doing it too.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, hers was about. She was a lot more embarrassed though.
I love that she was just like, "Oh no, I have to pee."
Yeah, she didn't know what to do.
How do I do this?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, other than that though, like the film is incredibly well structured. The animation is beautiful.
The
I
art
love
style in general is gore. Like any scene where like really showed this guy with the comet was absolutely stunning.
even the comet kind of is an allusion to that whole Red String of Fate thing. Like it's the whole art overarching theme.
Mm-hmm.
The entire soundtrack it works so well too. It was done by a group known as I just had Rad Wimps. um, they're apparently a group. They're a Japanese band. They've been around since 2001. Wow. Their name was coined from the English slang terms "rad" and "wimp." Good for them. And it's supposed to mean excellent weakling or superlative coward.
That's great.
That's fun. Yeah, and this film would go on to be like a massive success to the point where Shinkai apparently kind of resented it for a while because it ended up overshadowing everything else he ever worked on.
Well, I mean, everyone kind of has that one thing that they did. They kind of feel that way about. Like for Stephen King, I feel like he feels that way about it. Like I'm pretty sure he said on record before, like long past the day when everybody forgets my name, they'll always remember that fucking clown. Like,
I think another thing too is I've only seen a handful of his previous films, but from what I've read, his other work is like Your Name was kind of like the black sheep of his category when he of his like filmography when it first came out, because like all of his films have a supernatural element to them, but like Your Name was like the one that was like the first like full on like romantic kind of thing like this. And I feel like he had some issues with it when it first came out, just because it kind of like it meant that like he was gonna have a hard time topping it.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I think he did a perfectly good job with his next film, because the follow-up was a film called Weathering with You, which is also a romance story to a degree, but it's much more, the supernatural elements are way more prevalent. And it doesn't actually end on a super positive note, kind of. I'm not going to spoil it because I know you haven't seen it yet, so I want you to watch that eventually. It takes place before the end of Your Name, because Taki and Mitsuha both appear at one point in the film, which is a really nice callback.
I like when creators do that kind of thing. It's always a fun little nod to the the faithful watchers, readers, etc.
Yeah, it's I want to say it's before the end of Your Name, just because it's implied that Taki and Mitsuha have not met yet. Well, re-met, I should say. But they're both adults, so it definitely happens at some point during that 5-year time skip.
Or 8-year, depending on your point of view.
True. Mitsuha is the older one. But he's also done another film that just came out that I still need to watch called Suzume, which I've heard is also kind of bizarre and wacky. But
I've heard of that one. I don't know. I know nothing about it, but I know I've heard the name before.
It's also on Crunchyroll. I know the trailer for it played before a bunch of anime films that came out a couple of years back, so you might have seen it there.
It's possible.
But
Um,
yeah, other than that, like the only other things I didn't have time to read them, so I can't really touch on them fully, but there is a manga adaptation of Your Name as well, which is apparently
oh,
very very nice. There's
is
also
it just a single volume or
no, it's actually 3 volumes. It's
okay?
so it tells the full story. There's a novel adaptation, like a light novel adaptation of it.
Hmm.
And there is also a second manga, which is an alternative. I believe it is like an alternate viewpoint of the story through like the people surrounding Taki and Mitsuha.
Okay.
But there's 5 mangas in total essentially, and then a light novel if you really are interested in more Your Name content.
I might have to check out some of that stuff.
Hmm. You can find them at any bookstore. They're pretty always in stock.
Bookstore, what's that?
All right, they don't have those in Massachusetts anymore. I'm spoiled because they're fucking everywhere down here.
Not unless I want to go for an hour-long drive.
Yeah, I mean, there's Newbury Comics. I'm sure it's there, probably.
I've seen them. They have some of that stuff. Not a. They don't have like a ton of variety with that. I know I've seen. There's like a novelization of Totoro and a couple other things there, but you know they cycle stuff out. So I'll have to go by there at some point soon and see what they got.
Yeah. Um, I love the. I still think though, like the ending might be one of my favorite parts of this film, just because it's a happy ending, but it's such an ambiguous ending, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, because I mean sometimes like kind of touching on how I mentioned Fruits Baskets earlier, where Fruits Baskets has like the epilogue where it shows them like happily married and their grandparents. You know what I mean? Like it's just too much. Like I would have preferred it if it was just like, okay, we're off. It's the first day of the rest of our lives, and just end it there. Kind of like how Fullmetal Alchemist did, where
Mhm.
they went on their respective journeys, and you see like a little tiny snippet of the future, but like not like maybe like a couple 2 3 4 years in the future, like not like so far ahead that they're at the end of their lives. You know what I mean? Like I like having that kind of like, okay, you know the story, and now they get to live their lives as they would have. You know what I mean? Like I just feel
Yeah.
like that is a more satisfying conclusion.
Well, I mean, if you want to be a pessimist, technically, like for all we know, like they could like go from here and never talk again. So
It's entirely possible, but
it's a
that
very
that's part of I was gonna say that's part of what makes the ambiguous ending good, is because it's up to the person consuming it to decide where that goes. I mean, me personally, I feel like it's probably just going to continue on, like they're gonna date and whatever. Like that's probably what is gonna end up happening. But I like not knowing, if that makes sense.
see. I just want to know: did Taki ever find a job?
Yeah, right.
Because we find out in Weathering with You that Mitsua has a job, not
Plot
Taki.
twist: they get married. They get married, and he goes into politics.
God, that would be such a weird take, especially because Taki's obsessed with a fucking painting for most of the film.
For real.
Uh, we're making kind of jokes about it, but this is an excellent film, like
No,
overall.
it's absolutely like if obviously if you're not into animated medium, then I don't know why you're even listening to this show. But anyone who likes that kind of genre or medium, like this is fantastic. Honestly, I give it like I don't think I really have any problems with it. I'd probably give it a solid 10 out of 10. The music is perfect for the tone that it's going for. The animation and art direction is perfect. The acting is spot on. Like
Oh yeah,
I can't think of a single wasted moment in this film.
yeah. There isn't even like a slow part like on rewatches where you're just like get on with it. It's like everything is so well structured, and I also love too that they didn't really follow up on it at all. They kind of like immediately just kind of left it as is, which I like. I will
Mhm.
say though, I'm a little worried because there is a live action adaptation in development right now.
Oh, there is. Cindy was actually just saying that she kind of wants there to be one. So we'll see.
So it's an American adaptation, so I'm already
Ooh.
not. So it's an American adaptation, apparently being produced by J.J. Abrams of all people. Um,
It could go either way.
my only
It's a coin flip.
see, I'm hesitant mostly just because they've been through 3 directors already,
That's fair.
which is not a great sign.
But I
Um,
mean, it's one of those things where I've seen good Abrams movies and I've seen bad Abrams movies. So
yeah, it's also the track record for American adaptions of anime is very hit or miss. Like One Piece is like the exception that we'll always bring up. There's also the Rurouni Kenshin films. Well, no, those are
mhm.
Japanese. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Those are good. Yeah, it's like never mind. Forget I said that. Um, there's One Piece, and that's about it. I mean, I
uh,
love.
Detective Pikachu was all right, but that was technically a video game movie.
Yeah, I don't count that as anime so much. Um, to me, like, I mean, I love the Netflix One Piece. No, the Netflix Death Note, not because it's good, just because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's for sure.
that film's great for all the wrong reasons.
No kidding.
Uh, but yeah, it's we'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, I'll probably go see it.
Yeah, I probably will too, honestly. I don't know if is it going to be theaters or is it just going to go straight to streaming? Do you know?
I don't. I mean, there's not enough about it at this point yet. I mean, they haven't even started filming it yet. So
That's fair. So it's probably at least a few years out.
yeah, if it even gets that far, because I mean, for all
Yeah,
we know, this could get canceled quietly in the background, and no one will ever think of it again.
true. Um, I'm not 100% sure. I need to look into it, but I think The Boy and the Heron might be on Netflix now.
I gotta watch that because I want to do a follow up for GNC because we did that we did the whole retrospective there on GNC, and I'd like to reach out to Rick. I'm not sure if he's doing collabs right now, because I know
Hmm.
he's on a break, but I'd like to watch that movie and have Rick back on to cover it. So that's
Yeah.
something farther down the line.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know him personally. I don't want to speak for him, but uh, I feel like a one off with somebody you like and respect is different than kind of running your own thing. So,
True.
your chances are probably better than null. So
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea when me and Alex will get around to that, anyways. But that's
that's
just a
true.
thought for the future.
Well,
But
I'll cross my fingers and hope to see that in the future
yeah,
or
I'm
hear it. I guess.
yeah. And as the car goes by, anything else we want to cover before we sign off? Or
No, I think that pretty much covers it. If you haven't watched it, please go and do so because it's totally worth it.
oh yeah, it's honestly like a kind of a gateway anime film that really will get you into the whole idea of anime movie, like standalone anime movies,
Yeah,
because there's a ton of them out there and they're really good. It's just you kind of have to just be in the mindset for something like that.
yeah. It's kind of like a hard thing for me though with anime movies is because like a lot of times, like I said with this movie, like I was satisfied with the way that they handled the ending, but at the same time, I want more information about the world and how it works and how the magic works and every like a prequel. Like I want to know what was going on with Grandma there. Like you know what I mean? Like um just I don't know. There's a part of me, and I end up feeling that way about a lot of those standalone anime movies,
Hmm.
like Spirited Away. What the fuck is going on there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
An
got to be more
amazing.
to that. Like,
It's an amazing mind fuck. That's exactly
for
what
real.
Spirit.
Like that was like the
Uh,
biggest fucking acid trip of a movie I've ever seen in my life. Like,
that's still my second favorite Ghibli film.
no, it's a great movie. It's just like it threw me for a loop. And spoiler, The Boy and the Heron does a similar thing. It throws you for a total loop. Like,
I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm curious if it's going to top The Wind Rises because I still think The Wind Rises is a perfect film, but
hmm,
that's for another podcast discussion.
fair enough.
Um, yeah, but anyways, guys, that's about it for this one. So once again, thank you for watching us. I'm completely lost. Thank you for listening to Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. You can also find us over on the SuperPod Network, along with a whole bunch of other awesome shows, including like the likes of SuperPod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, and Novel Console, Gaming Together, The Elder Trolls, Friday Night Gamecast, Bar Silence, Fine Time. There's some GNC shows. Don't worry about them. I think that's everybody.
Remember 64.
Remember six. I always forget somebody, and then
you always forget 64.
No, it's either I forget Remember 64 or I forget Bar Silence, and I always feel like a douche because I love those guys. But
well, I mean, to be fair, I don't think anyone's expecting you to list off the whole like fucking 15 shows. So.
I know, but I want to because they're literally all my friends.
That's fair. Understandable.
But yeah, you can find us all there, and then you can also find all of our links at Linktree/The Barber Who Games, or you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server for all sorts of nonsense over there. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Have a good one.